Namaste. Today I'm inspired to talk to you about death and dying, our relationship to death and dying. Not a topic that most people want to talk about. Usually we want to avoid it. And this is the time of year that we call the Days of the Dead. In this time of year, around the full moon of October, November, we are finding that the veil between the earth and the earthly world, the physical plane, and the spirit world is at its thinnest. And it's this time when we start to be able to open up and communicate with the loved ones that have moved on. This is a time where we can honor our ancestors, honor the people who've come before, honor everything that has brought us to where we are now, because it's thanks to them, whether they be known or unknown to us, that we are here in the situation that we're in. So I want to begin with a poem that comes from a woman who lived in the last century and wrote, I think, beautifully about what death and dying really is. Just listen to this, perhaps with a memory of someone in your heart. This is from Mary Elizabeth Fry. Do not stand by my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am in the thousand winds that blow. I am the softly falling snow. I am the gentle showers of rain. I am the fields of ripening grain. I am in the morning hush. I am in the graceful rush of beautiful birds in circling flight. I am the starshine of the night. I am in the flowers that bloom. I am in a quiet room. I am in the birds that sing. I am in each lovely thing. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I do not die. This is such a beautiful poem for so many reasons, because it evokes our connection with the world around us. This is really the ancient teachings of every spiritual community, every spiritual tradition. When we recognize that we are profoundly interconnected, we recognize that we are simply this matter that transforms to begin this life and transforms to end this life and transforms throughout the entirety of our life, we recognize that it's impossible to disappear upon death. That the only thing that changes is the physical form, what we have recognized as this body, this individual, this person that we related to. When you think about life, we only ever really recognize spirit, from spirit to spirit, as the relationship that we have with another. We can have just as intense a relationship with someone who isn't physically present as we can with someone who's right beside us. And this is because we relate on the level of spirit. We relate on the level of the unseen. This is where love exists. This is where the truth exists. When we really recognize that, then we know that we can't lose anyone. We can't lose a relationship. It's impossible. The grieving that we feel upon the loss, the physical loss of a relationship, is mostly coming from our own sadness and our own egoic attachments. These egoic attachments create a lot of suffering. The one who's died is not suffering. The one who's passed on is moving back into the higher consciousness, this field of pure love that we all came from at one stage. And when we recognize the beauty of where that individual soul has gone back to, how could we be sad except if we've attached and fixated on our own comfort, on our own needs? Anandamayi Ma, when she was asked by her disciples why she didn't grieve the passing of her own husband, she said, when I think of where that soul has gone to, how could I grieve? How could I be sad? In such a beautiful place that soul is dwelling. If we're grieving, if we're highly attached to physical form, then we're finding more and more heaviness, more and more negative, dull energy in the self. So although we can understand on one level that life continues, that all change is natural and in fact inherent in life, we can still go through this process of grieving when we lose someone. This is natural and healthy. And the process of grieving is coming from our degree of connection or attachment to the life form. If we understand that the life form is inherently going to change, then our grieving will be a little bit shorter, perhaps less intense, and maybe even to the point of understanding that this spirit, this soul, has fulfilled its purpose and can move on to a completely different purpose, a different plane of existence. In our own attachments, in the ego's attachments to life and the way that we want to see life, then we will suffer even more if we believe that somehow something is wrong in the situation, if we can't accept the situation, if we resist the change in the situation, then we suffer enormously. Any idea that there's a sense of injustice around death is a deep flaw coming from the egoic way of looking at life as either right or wrong. And this, of course, on a higher plane, on a natural level, doesn't exist. Nature doesn't judge, and the nature of life is completely neutral and very impersonal. I can speak from experience. I don't want you to think that this is entirely coming from theory. My third child died on his third day when he had a brain hemorrhage. We didn't quite expect this. We didn't quite expect him to be born when he was born. And in fact, he was like a miracle to begin with, because I had nearly lost my life a few years before that, following a medical accident. And I started to appreciate the gift of life in the moment, which was a great preparation for losing my child. And in understanding the loss of my child, I understood that all life just happens. Things just happen. Now, when an infant is lost, there's a lot of feeling of there's an unjust situation, there's something wrong, something unfair of the situation. And I heard that quite a lot in the very well-meaning comments of the people around me. But I must say I didn't feel that way. I felt very much that I had been blessed by this connection, this life that came into my own life that we shared briefly, and by the enormous transmission of love. And to be honest, that's the only thing that really matters in a life. So a life does not get measured by the number of years that we live, but really by the connection of love. Can we learn from the loving connection of any contact with any life? The feeling of loss is very visceral, and especially when you've just lost an infant, because you're still so close to pregnancy, and there's a very physical sensation of loss. It's almost like losing a limb. It's almost like having a sense that everywhere you're going, you're forgetting something, you're missing something. And this loss you do have to contend with on the physical level. But when you understand that everything is serving a purpose, that everything comes from a higher teaching, you can let go much more easily. Letting go of the grieving, understanding that the grieving is just a necessary process, but it's not something that we should sustain. The grieving should come as a way of releasing the other, as a way of somehow moving to a higher level of relationship. So the grieving process is absolutely welcome and normal, but it should also be done in the remembrance of the permanence of impermanence, and that all life is change, and that the only thing that truly matters in life is how much you have loved and how much you have received love from others. This is why we're here. This is the meaning of life as we know it, and anything else is just a bonus. So do remember your ancestors in this day. Remember all of these moments that we have, that we share together as human beings, because they're very precious. And they do represent the chain of memories that we go through life with, but they are not everything. They are not the relationship, and they certainly are not worth spoiling your life over. When we move on from loss, we must remember that we have a debt to our own soul, to our own spirit, to continue with life, to continue to share, to continue to love, and to keep bringing forth a feeling of love and abundance to others as well, that we can heal their suffering, that we can heal their hurts in the times when they are feeling loss. So I want to leave you with a notion of maybe something to offer to your ancestors, to offer to yourself. You can heal all levels of relationships, again, whether you knew or didn't know your ancestors, whether you knew or didn't know even those individuals that have touched your ancestors' lives, but then somehow have an effect on your own. And we want to bring healing on every level. Healing doesn't mean that you have no physical illness, that you have no physical symptoms, but healing comes from a deep process of the soul, a deep process of release and forgiveness. So this is a beautiful prayer that comes from the Ho'oponopono people of Hawaii. It was done originally as a communal prayer, as a communal healing for the entire tribe, for the entire nation to heal from. And a beautiful soul called Morna decided to take this healing and bring it to a more modern audience and allow the individual to process as well, because community is not always easy to find in these modern times. So Morna has brought this teaching to us, and we can benefit from it in so many ways. So I invite you to listen to these words and really take them into your heart and really use them at lots of different occasions when you're finding that there's a lot of tension or distress in your life or in the life of those around you. 4 simple phrases that you can say aloud or silently. Most often when I use this, I'm saying them silently because the circumstances don't allow the speaking out loud. So here we go. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Morna also offered a personal prayer that she used, which was asking for healing. And this is something that's really valuable in these times if we're looking at healing past relationships or healing relationships with ancestors or on behalf of ancestors, because sometimes what we're living through in this life is actually coming through past lives or other energies that actually don't belong to us. But on some level we're being asked to heal that. And when we really put our heart to it, we can start to heal. In the shamanic tradition, it's believed that we heal through our own process, going back 7 generations and going ahead 7 generations. And so the healing is quite transformational for so many people, for so many levels, and you can offer it through your own sacrifice, through your own process of healing and letting go. So this is Morna's second prayer. This is an individual prayer that you can offer to whomever you like, keeping in mind whomever you like in your own heart. Spirit superconscious, please locate the origin of my suffering. Take each and every level, layer, area, and aspect of my being to this origin. Analyze it and resolve it perfectly with God's truth. Come through all generations of time and eternity, healing every incident and its appendages based on the origin. Please do it according to God's will until I am in the present, filled with light and truth. God's peace and love forgive me for my incorrect perceptions. Forgive every person, place, circumstance, and event that contributed to my suffering. So I wish you much progress on your path of healing. I wish you a very rich communication with the loved ones that may have passed on, or that may still be in your life, that perhaps you can feel a more spiritual connection with those who have brought you here and those who have sustained your life. I finish each of my classes with a silent mantra to my teachers. My teachers are the reason that I'm here, and they're the reason that allows me to communicate and share what I know. And so I acknowledge them silently at the end of each session. And the mantra is Om Shri Guru Pye Namaha. And when I say this, I'm really acknowledging everything that has gone before me. I am simply the product of wisdom that has gone many, many years, many generations back. And I acknowledge this because we are only ever a constitution of many parts of existing in prior lives. And this is something that we can be grateful for. Om Shri Guru Pye Namaha.